Well, Tess, welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here.
So, I there's a lot of people take many different paths to the writing life. Two of the more common careers I found that lead to writer, the most common is lawyer for sure. If you're going to, and but the other, strangely, is the medical profession. It's not that unusual for someone to whatever personality type it is that draws them to that. And you fit that category too. Is that correct?
I do, but I'm rather surprised at I'm not sure I would agree that
No?
medical doctors are like high on the list of people who become novelists.
No, more than you would think. I know. I certainly wouldn't have thought so from my experience of medical doctors, just as a
Yeah.
patient. But no, I've interviewed a great number of them who have gone, who, for whatever reason, it may be the uh, mental discipline needed just to become one, right? You just,
That
right? Does that
yes,
make,
that may be it. I think that by and large they're a literate group, and they
yeah,
do definitely have the discipline. They have the stick with itness
yeah,
to finish a project.
yeah,
But it's funny because I think a lot of doctors are not necessarily storytellers
yeah.
because of the kind of training we have. I mean, we have a very objective training, and to become a novelist requires you to take flights of fancy and to get away from logic and really pay more attention to emotions.
All right, so that was actually my first real question, which was where was the writer when young Tess, whatever your last name was, I don't know if it always was Gerritsen, when young Tess was going to medical school and working hard, and that type A personality was just getting through everything. What was the writer doing?
The writer was there since age 7. I wrote my
Uh,
first book when I was 7 years old. And I think that's not an unusual age for a
mm-mm.
lot of writers to self identify. 7 is when we first feel comfortable holding a pen and we can spell and we can actually get things down on paper.
Yeah, and so that was true for you. But okay, so why not write? Why not go get your MFA? Why not just go sit down and write? Why become a
Yeah.
doctor?
Well, you know how you said some people are afraid of hearing the voices. I was afraid of poverty,
Yeah,
and
yep,
it was my father who was. I mean, I'm a Chinese American, and immigrant families, especially people who don't feel as if they have a firm footing in this country, are really focused on finding a job that will support them. And my
yeah,
dad was really insistent that I go into the
yeah,
sciences.
right.
And I love science anyway, so it wasn't not that big a leap, but I knew I was a writer from the time I was very young and never left me.
But did you know suspense was the thing? That
Oh, yes,
crime,
yes,
you
yes,
knew that
absolutely.
because you
Um,
read that, or just why?
because when I grew up, my favorite books were Nancy Drew. So, I
Ah,
mean, I
yeah,
knew from the beginning that mysteries were always interesting to me. And when I wrote my first books, which were romances, they were
right.
also filled with murders. So I think that from the very beginning, I was focused on the dark side. I was really fascinated by the dark side.
So you've written a lot of books, a lot of books. I'm very interested in this latest effort because of something. I don't know if it's that unusual for you, but I suspect it is. But when did
It
you
is.
feel like? When did you feel like I? Maybe you never felt like this, but you found your voice when you felt like I know what Tess Gerritsen does. I get it. Do you have kind of a memory of that, or do you still feel like you're discovering it?
It's very book dependent. I mean, there are some books where my voice changes,
Mm,
and others where I just fall back on the old Rizzoli and Isles storyteller. So,
right.
but by and large, I know what my voice sounds like on the page.
Yeah, speaking of Rizzoli and Isles, what's that like? What was it like to see them take your thing and turn it into their thing? Because they have to change it, right, to make it successful. Um, I mean, I must have been exciting. It's great financially, but
Mhm.
like, what was it? Just because I wrote a song, my brother just reinterpreted it with this group, and it was flattering, but I kind of was a little irritated by it too because it was different than exactly what I wrote, right?
Right. It's
So
disconcerting. It is.
yeah,
You're right. It's exciting, and and the money was good. But it's as if you've given birth to these girls. They go off to college and they come home with purple hair. I mean, like,
yes,
what happened? It's
right. And you got to let it go, don't you?
You have to let it go. There's no other way to be sane about dealing with Hollywood.
Yeah.
Your characters on the page, their characters on the screen. Sometimes they agree and sometimes they don't, but it's no longer your baby anymore.
Yeah. All right. So I said, so choose here. I'm going to, let's move some paper there. Oh, ittle be backwards, but it's called
Good.
Choose Me. There it is. Tess Gerritsen and Gary Braver. What
Right.
the hell? Because, the only reason I say it is, look, I'm a writer. I write prose. I did write theater for a little while where I collaborated, but mostly my whole life, it's been me, and I like it that way.
Mhm.
Television writers and screenwriters work in tandem all the time, but not usually novelists, not usually. So what happened? What happened?
It was a cocktail party. So, so some of the best stories, some of the worst stories always happen in cocktail parties. But I had been thinking about the Me Too movement for a while. And
Okay.
I'm always very focused on the fact that everybody sees a story in a different way. Um, Everyone is the hero of their own story, even though
That's
they may
right.
actually be the villain in real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought, well, you know what, I would like to write a book that has to do with the Me Too movement, but also to get all the various points of view of what is it like to have an illicit affair, and maybe the two partners of this illicit affair have really completely different views of what happened between them.
Right.
So rather than write the male point of view, I thought it would be fun to actually have a man write it, to hear what a man would say about this. I mean, you have these two people that are having this affair, and it's a bad. I mean, it to play in with the Me Too movement. It's something that should not have happened.
Right.
Because he's a college professor and she is his brilliant student.
Right.
What happens when that melding takes place, and what are the consequences of it, and how would he see it, and how would she see it? So I was at a cocktail party in Boston, and I've known Gary Braver for decades. I don't even remember how many decades, and I was
Wow.
talking to him about it, and he is a college professor. And so he was like the perfect person to write the male point of view. And that's how it happened. It was like we had a couple of drinks. He said, let's do it. And we began to trade chapters back and forth. And
So that's the way you did it, is you traded chapters.
right. I mean, he would email a chapter, I'd email him back a chapter. And it was kind of a chaotic process,
Yeah.
because at the beginning, we didn't know who did it.
That's what I was going to ask you. So you didn't try to outline it. Do you outline your own stuff? Okay, so you don't do that. Okay, and so you don't even know who did it. Are you that?
No, we argued about it. There were a number of, let's say, spirited discussions about who did it.
Right.
We did know it starts off with the murder, and a lot of the story is told in flashback.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really clear, and it's a fun way to discover what the story is about as these characters start to take shape, and you realize, oh, that person could have done it, or maybe that person. And so we're going back and forth. It was a difficult project because we're two different writers, and you come at this from different places and with different ideas of how it should be told.
Yeah.
But somehow we managed to wrangle it all together.
And so, did you find it interesting? Did you find some gender stuff interesting in working with him on that? Discover anything?
Yes, I did. I did. Well, there were funny turnabouts. For instance, some of my characters would use the word girl. And women use the word girl with each other.
Right.
And he came back, he slapped my wrist. He goes, that is sexist. You can't use the word girl. And I thought, here's a guy lecturing me about I can't use the word girl.
All depends who says it.
Yeah, that's what I said. We say it all the time.
Right.
And the other thing that was interesting, were when the professor and this young woman first meet on the page, the professor's impression of her is very sexualized. I mean, he's paying attention to how attractive she is, and all these things that to me were a bit offensive. I thought,
right,
do men really look at women for the first time and that's what they see? And I was bothered by it until I asked my husband. I said, is this how men really think? And he goes, yeah, it is.
It is a beginning. It is a starting place for a great many men. It starts there. It doesn't. Hopefully, it doesn't end there.
Yeah, I said, okay, well, maybe it's true, but let's tone it down because we have
Yeah,
female readers who are not going to like this character
yeah,
very much.
yeah, yeah.
So there was a certain amount of stuff that had to be done that was probably less than realistic, but probably also more acceptable to readers.
All right, that's fair. Okay, listen, Tess, very interesting person. I'm glad I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. I'm glad we finally made it happen. But I got one more question for you. And what I want you to do is finish this sentence. If writing, all the writing you've done, and you've done a lot of it, if all this writing has taught you anything, it's taught you what?
Listen to the character's voice. That's it. I mean, I can't start a chapter unless I can hear somebody talking to me. And it's that particular voice that is going to tell the story. And it's that, is it accented? Is it young? Is it old? Is it female? Is it male? Is it educated? Is it not? That is what your story is all about, that point of view.